Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and we have an extremely exciting review prepared for you today. This is a model that I was waiting quite a long time for, as shipping throughout the holiday season is usually very delayed. Things just get held up for an extended period of time. This Smilodon is definitely one of the packages headed my way that was held up for an extended period of time. I actually had ordered the Titanoboa from Everything Dinosaur after like a week or so after I had ordered this Smilodon, and unfortunately the Titanoboa had arrived weeks ahead of time before the Smilodon did. So these guys were held up for, quite a little ways in shipping, and they continued to have me just sitting here tapping my toes awaiting their presence, and again in suspense, honestly, over how good they're going to be, because I had seen a lot of images of these online and they look fantastic from what I had seen, but now they are finally here as we have a chance to take a look at the Rebor Stray Cat, the Smilodon models, and you can see we have two different paint variants here. There is actually a third variant of this, kind of a He-Man inspired paint scheme, but that's not something that I personally was all that interested in, so I went with these two here, and I'm very intrigued to take a look at these guys because the boxes are really heavy, like shockingly heavy. I don't think I was quite prepared for how heavy these models would be, and again, I'm very interested to see exactly why they're so heavy, but you can see as far as the box art goes, it's pretty much your standard when it comes to a Rebor model. Both of them look incredible, and they both also show off the fact that we have two alternating head sculpts for our Smilodon to give you a almost closed mouth version and then a really open wide mouth version. And then here, if you take a look at the back of these, we'll turn them both around. You can see that we have the alternate color variants here. And again, this is the other one that I was talking about with the Big Bad Toy Store exclusive, the kind of He-Man version. There also is apparently a jungle variant, but that wasn't released yet and has not been teased as far as I can recall. There is obviously another version of this coming from Rebor, so I'm super psyched to take a look at these again. Probably one of the most hyped up models that I've had the pleasure of reviewing in quite some time, because it seems to be getting an overwhelming positive response from the collecting community. So let's go ahead, pop these out, and take a look at them. Well, I have just discovered why these are so heavy, and oh man, are these things incredible. I was not in any way, shape, or form prepared for the size of these Smilodon. I don't know why. I thought they were going to be way smaller, like similar in size probably to the Memory Museum Smilodon that was released a ways back. I'm not sure why I thought that, but the size is incredible on these, and I put one head sculpt on each. We could see that we have the nearly closed mouth version on that one, and then here is the other one right here. I don't know a good way to put this in here right now, but you can see the open mouth version. Again, really cool, very dynamic looking positioning for the head. As far as actually both of them, I would say, goes. The one on the left looks like it's kind of growling and trying to look intimidating. The one on the right clearly has gone into attack mode, and both are perfectly sculpted out to show that off. And wow, do they ever make a really cool diorama here in comparison to each other. Definitely a great way to display them, but man, are these unbelievable. I am not going to lie to you guys, I think this is probably the best Rebor release that I have ever seen, and they have released a lot of incredible models over the years, but I don't know that I've ever seen a model from Rebor that is this impressive, because everything about them, the size is massive, the paint application is phenomenal, like exceptionally well done, incredibly realistic. The sculpt is as highly detailed of a Smilodon as I've ever seen, and the realism is just off the charts on both of them, especially when it comes to those saber teeth that we have on our Smilodon. They look 100% real. Man, I am honestly in awe at how incredible these are. And we also have the alternate head sculpts, again, that would go on both, so you can have the version that currently has the mouth gaping wide open with a more closed mouth version similar to what we have over here, and then vice versa with this one. So you have the option to, pick and choose how you display them. So Rebor, as always, going the extra mile to give you just that extra bit of awesomeness with your release. But honestly, again, words don't do these justice. Like, these are unquestionably the two most impressive Smilodon models that I have ever seen in my entire life. I think prior to this, the one Smilodon which I was never able to get a hold of that I felt was always like the best interpretation out there well, would have originally been the Memory Museum version, and then it would have been after the Memory Museum version, I feel like it would have been the Damn Toys version. I was never able to get a hold of the Damn Toys version, and I felt it looked great, but honestly, having these two here, I don't feel any desire whatsoever to continue trying to hunt down the Damn Toys version, because these are pretty much the ultimate Smilodon models that I can think of right here. Both of these are just incredible, and even though I wasn't really too interested in the Big Bad Toy Store exclusive version, just seeing how amazing these are in hand, I almost want to get the other one just because. So anyway, again, I'm pretty much at a loss for words, I would say, as far as how beautiful these are, so let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at them right now. So taking a look at the brownish version, again, the current more fierce looking version due to the head sculpt than this one, but you can see that the sculpt is incredible. Like, they've really captured so much detail in the face, and honestly, with the positioning of the mouth and everything, and the way that the mouth is just gaping wide open as that Smilodon comes in for the kill, you can see how the movement of the face is shown so unbelievably and realistically throughout the course of the sculpt. Like, even like the creasing right here, kind of like the way that the eyes are almost scrunched up a little bit, like you can see the eyebrow kind of pulled down, and just showing so much fierce attitude toward whatever it is about to attack. And you can again see all of that movement shown throughout the course of the head sculpt in brilliant fashion. The stretching of the skin here along the course of the mouth is all nicely shown as well. And there's some beautiful paint application, as we have some nice variations of browns, and then some nice whites and everything down here, up here in the snout as well. And then you can also see some black stripes or very dark gray stripes that kind of lead down. All very nice and naturalistic paint application and coloration for what I would expect to see on a Smilodon. You can also see some white there underneath the eye, as well as some white that stripes up around in front of the eye, and then there's some black in there as well. And then the eyes are painted with a yellow and given a black pupil, and they also sport a really nice realistic gloss coat. I love the eyes of the Smilodon. I think that is a massive improvement over what Rebor has been giving us when it comes to those kind of goldish eyes that they seem to like giving so many of their dinosaur figures. I would much rather yellow eyes like we see here over the gold eyes. I feel like it looks way more natural and way more lifelike than the gold coloration that they often use. And you can see also this side here looks fantastic as far as both the coloration, the paint, and the placement of the eye goes. And then once you go into the mouth, again, this is another world of realism here. Look at how fantastic the teeth look on the Smilodon. And you can also see that they have like color variation to them, as you have some slight shades of like almost browns over top of the yellowish tone of the teeth, making it look incredibly realistic. And all of it sports a very lifelike gloss coat to it. You can see the gloss coat on the teeth, and you can also see it there on the gums. The gums themselves are very nicely shown, again, helping to provide that very fierce look to the Smilodon. And you can also see the paintwork of the gums is beautifully done, as we have some very nice realistic tones of purple used in there. And there's also what appears to potentially be like a wash included on the inside of the mouth. And again, from a detailing standpoint, that detail in there is phenomenal. And you can see the teeth are just as realistic as they get, no matter what area of the mouth you're looking, even down here on the lower jaw. Look at how unbelievably realistic and lifelike those teeth are. You can also see the tongue is very nicely sculpted, again, very nicely textured, and also has been hit with that gloss coat. The gloss coat on the inside of the mouth just honestly makes it look like a real living animal's mouth. So unbelievably appealing to the eye, and again, about as lifelike of a mouth I think I've ever seen when it comes to a Smilodon model, statue, anything. It doesn't get any better than what I'm seeing here on this Rebor version, and the sculpt is just unbelievable inside the mouth. Again, in an area that's so important to a Smilodon, especially when it has its mouth open like this, Rebor knocked it out of the park when it comes to both the detailing aspect and the realism aspect. And then you can see here as you lead up throughout the course of the face, you have some very nice fine fur throughout. And you can see as you lead back further, the fur starts to get a little thicker, a little bit bigger. You can also see the nose is very nicely sculpted and painted. We have a nice kind of a pinkish tone there. Seems to maybe have a dark wash over top as well, giving it some color variation. And the nostrils are also highlighted with a darker color, which I think also helps to add a nice element of realism and helps that area to stand out. And again, you can see in general that the figure has, of course, that nice brownish coloration, but it seems like it has a nice dry brushing over top of a lot of the fur with maybe a variation of gray to give it that kind of dirty and gritty type of a look. And I feel like that really amps up the realism as well. And the fur detail continues to look great. You can see a little bit more of a fine appearance to the fur up here on the top of the head as we lead back toward the ears. You can see it does get a little scruffier as you reach the ears, but once you actually lead out onto the ears themselves, again, they're back to being that very fine fur. And then down here you can see a lot of kind of wavy and shaggy fur inside the ears, which looks really, really good. You also have some nice variations of white inside the ears, again, just to give it some color difference. And you can see that the fur detail is incredible throughout the course of the Smilodon. There's just so much detail to the fur that it's something that, often when you get a Smilodon model, they kind of skimp out when it comes to the detail on the fur. And of course, I'm not speaking to Rebor because this is their first Smilodon yet, but most companies, when they produce a Smilodon, they'll give you just like generic fur, and that is not what you see at all when it comes to this Smilodon. Like, they have gone the extra mile to give you the absolute most highly detailed look to the fur of this Smilodon that I have ever seen. You can also see some nice like creasing in here to the fur and the skin and everything, because the Smilodon has its head turned quite sharply to the right, so they have done a good job on that aspect as well. And I just realized as I drug my finger across the saber teeth of our Smilodon that they definitely are quite sharp, and they look sharp, which is also a huge plus, again, showing that this is a model for an adult collector, not a kid, because that is as realistically sharp as it gets when it comes to the saber teeth of a Smilodon. You can see as we get down here to the underside of the throat, there's some nice scrunching of the fur right there, and some nice, again, paintwork with some variations of brown and then kind of like a white dry brushing, which helps to, again, give it some color variation, which I really do quite like. You can see that those dark stripes continue to lead back throughout the course of the body. You can see up here on the top more beautiful fur detail, as well as the muscle definition there leading up from the leg. That is incredible looking, really showing off just how strong of an animal this Smilodon was. As you lead down a little further, you continue to see again those dark gray or black stripes, as well as the elbow present back here. Some kind of saggy fur kind of hanging off of the back of the leg. And then as you get down into the foot, you can see the foot sculpt looks fantastic. Very nicely sculpted out nails, as well as the toes. The nails are painted with a black, and they do sport a bit of a glossy look, so that as well as a pretty realistic aspect to the model. And then as you lead up here, again, you can see some nice movement here in the stomach region as far as like, the fur wrinkling and stuff. And you can see that as you move throughout the course of the entire body. Actually, like, you can see even more kind of wrinkling right up here due to the positioning of the hip kind of pulling and stretching the fur, as well as, again, some saggy fur here on the underside. You can see the skin stretching off of the body with the rear leg, trailing right there, stretching that fur out, which also looks really nice. You have more of those stripes that run through the course of the stomach, but when you come up here to the top of the body, again, you have that kind of wavy fur everywhere, and it's very nicely dry brushed over again with that gray, which really makes it, again, look so realistic and lifelike. And then as you reach back here into the thigh, again, you can pick up on the incredible muscle definition displayed in the sculpt, as well as some nice movement shown, again, with the fur kind of being wavy, the skin stretching and everything throughout. You can also see the kneecaps sort of right there, and then as you move down into the foot, you get some nice variation of color with like some white dry brushing, and you can see it kind of mixes with the browns and everything down here on the foot. And then the foot as well looks really nice on the rear, like it just did on the front leg, so that is great. And then we come back up here, you can see the tail of our Smilodon leading off of the back, and you can see that is very nicely sculpted. The fur detail becomes a lot more fine out here onto the tail, and we have some nice variations of browns, some of that white dry brushing, and that dark striping running down the course of the tail. And Rebor really did a great job of keeping up with accuracy and anatomical correctness, as we have the genitals back here as well, which is something that's really cool to see that, again, they go the extra mile to make it the most lifelike as possible. And then you can see the really nice positioning of the head and the gaping wide positioning of the mouth from this side. And again, the beautiful sculpt and paintwork as well. The paintwork is honestly unbelievably well done, far exceeding pretty much most Rebor models, which that's not to say that they normally have bad paint applications, because they really don't. They usually have great paint applications, but this just is even better than I ever imagined. Like, if you look up here, you can even see like lighter variations of browns within the other variation of brown, as well as the dry brushing. There's just so much honestly, depth to the paint application of this Smilodon. You can also see on this side the stretching of the skin and the fur over here, because again, the Smilodon's head is turned away from this side toward the right of the animal, so the skin is stretching nicely. You can also still see, though, some bunching of the skin in the throat because the head is kind of leaning in a downward position as well, so it would be scrunching that skin and fur up very nicely down there, and you continue to see kind of like some hanging skin and fur throughout the course of the underside of the chest. And then as you lead back here, you can see that the front leg that is extended is very nicely flexing. The muscle definition there of that leg, it is shining for sure, and you can again see the beautiful fur detail as you move down the course of the leg. Again, more of that kind of hanging fur off of the back. The elbow is nicely present, and we beautifully have those nails again painted. They're very precise, very nicely painted, which is a huge plus because there's honestly a lot of room for error right there, and I feel like it looks really good actually when it comes to the paintwork. And then as we lead back up here again into the body, man, the Smilodon is massive. You can see a little bit more of the stomach region, I think, on the front part of the Smilodon because the leg is stretched out, so it's not kind of obscuring it a little bit like we saw on the opposing side. So you can see kind of like the skin showing here like a little hint of stretching off of the body right there for the movement of the Smilodon. Also more of that fantastic scruffy fur in the stomach region. And then we lead back here. You can see the hip bone very nicely right there, as well as, again, the muscle definition of the rear leg, which looks great. You can again see that foot sculpt. Very, very nice looking sculpt and paint, honestly. Beyond exceeding my expectations. And you even have the pads on the underside of the feet, and they are perfectly painted as well, which adds even another element of realism to the Smilodon. And you can see what the detailing looks like here to the underside in general. It looks great no matter where you look at it. So this is, in my opinion, the best Smilodon I've ever seen. And I think I might like this one maybe a little better than the other one, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So now that we have taken a look at the first one, we of course don't need to actually review the sculpt of this one because it is the same sculpt. The only difference to this one is the fact that we have the mouth in more of a closed positioning, more so than the open position of the other one. So for the mouth of this one, you can see that the teeth are, again, given that kind of, not really a translucent type of a look, but whatever material they use for the teeth looks so realistic and lifelike, it's insane. And honestly, looking at how realistic the teeth look with this white coloration, it makes me really want Rebor to create a mammoth or a few different animals like that where they would have tusks, because they could create some very realistic looking tusks, because that honestly almost looks like ivory with the way that those teeth are painted and also glossed. It's very realistic, but you can see the gums inside the mouth. Again, you can also see the teeth here in the front of the mouth. Every tooth sculpted individually. The gums are all painted very nicely, and everything again looks as precise and realistic as it gets. And we also have some fantastic gloss coat added to the entire mouth, making it shine like a real mouth would. The nose sports a very nice pinkish tone of color, but also seems to have been dry brushed over kind of with a black or a gray to highlight the detail and also make it, again, have a bit more of a realistic look. I love the blue eyes of this one as well. Those blue eyes are very appealing. They almost stare into my soul. Look at how nice that paintwork is of the eyes. Very nice and precise. Same deal over here, I think, if my camera would focus. Yeah, absolutely. That is some beautiful paintwork and really meshes very nicely with the coloration of the Smilodon. And you can see again that as far as this one goes, we have some nice variations of lighter and darker shades of grays, but I even see some hints of browns throughout the face, and it also has a very nice dry brushing as well. I like how they've dry brushed like some white and stuff over certain areas of the snout, making the detail pop very realistically. You can also see that we have like some black spots that start to pick up here. You can even see one leading up here from the eyebrow area, but then we transition to a light gray with also kind of like a white dry brushing over top of the lower half of the Smilodon. And one thing that I really love about this is even though you like disconnect the head to reapply a different head, look at how realistic it looks with the head connected. Like, oftentimes when you get a model where you have to like connect the tail and stuff, you can really take note to the visible seam where the tail is connected. But even though you can see it a little bit up here on the top, it's not all that noticeable. And from the side, honestly, it's non-existent because of the way that the fur is really wavy and everything. It just hides the seam line so beautifully. So, some people might think, oh, well, I would have rather have an articulated jaw so there'd be no seam at all. I think this is actually a much better way to do it because now you don't have the seam of the articulated jaw and you can pose it with the mouth open or nearly closed, and again, the seam line really isn't noticeable if you ask me. But as you continue to move back throughout the course of the Smilodon, you have a very nice mixture of light grays, darker grays, and black speckling, and that's pretty much the way it looks throughout the entire figure. Like you can see, there's no real big change or anything to the coloration. You get kind of like some squiggly black stripes throughout the course of the figure in certain spots, but the majority kind of has like a speckling. But then here in the stomach region, you see almost like circles and stuff, which I think again is a very nice realistic and naturalistic coloration for a Smilodon, something I could definitely see a Smilodon being in real life. As you move down here, you can also see that we have a nice mixture of those lighter and darker grays leading down into the feet, as well as, again, some of that white dry brushing. And you can see the nails on this one are painted with a very similar coloration to the body itself, as we have kind of like a light gray for the nails, which was a pretty interesting choice, but I think works quite well also. And again, the coloration looks so beautiful throughout the entire figure, very precise. There's no sloppiness as far as the figure goes that I'm really picking up on as far as the coloration goes. I haven't noticed anything yet. Again, we have that nice striping down the tail similar to what we had just seen on the previous version. And then again, the nice mixture of all of the lighter and darker shades of blacks and grays and whites and everything on this side like we had just seen on the initial side. So sculpt-wise, easily the best Smilodon I've ever seen. Paint-wise, I would honestly say it's also the best Smilodon I've ever seen. So Rebor really knocked both of these out of the park, and to say they did the Smilodons justice would be an understatement. And then you also have the alternating head sculpts again, so you can switch out that Smilodon we were just taking a look at as far as its head sculpt goes to the mouth as it's roaring, letting out some sort of a vocalization, or maybe it's coming in for the kill. I don't know exactly what's going on, but you can again see how beautiful and realistic the sculpt is, especially on the inside of the mouth. I feel like this one here is, of course, the more impressive of the two head sculpts, just because you see so much unbelievable detail included on the inside of the sculpt and paint of the mouth. Of course, both look fantastic. I think, again, this is just a little bit more superior, and I think most people would probably agree due to the very dynamic appearance to this head sculpt. But you can also see, again, those beautiful blue eyes as it stares me down right here. Very, very appealing looking as far as the blue eyes go, and the paintwork is in no way, shape, or form lazy or sloppy on this head sculpt any more so than what we had just seen on the previous head sculpt. And also there's, again, a nice dark wash that you could see even in the teeth of this one, so very, very lifelike also. And then we have the alternate head sculpt for the other one that we had initially taken a look at now with the almost closed mouth version. You can again see how realistic and lifelike it looks. Again, when it's just sitting here on the table, it genuinely looks like a real living, breathing Smilodon, just at a much smaller size. So that really makes it, again, the most highest of compliments I think I can give a model, if I could say that it looks like a 100% living, breathing animal just shrunken down in a smaller size. That's about as good of a model as you're ever going to find. And again, this head sculpt is just absolutely gorgeous, just like the initial head sculpt was. So awesome to have, options when it comes to displaying your Smilodon, and Rebor really has done a fantastic job on every aspect of this release. Now, as far as switching the head out, again, what I was talking about, look at how almost non-existent, I would say not even almost, like you really don't notice that seam where the head is, but to switch the head out, you basically just have to take the one head off, and then if you really want to be crazy, you can actually, give it a different colored head like this, and we can switch the Smilodon up completely, which is weird that that doesn't look all that bad, but again, you basically just slide the head in, and it's a pretty tight squeeze, which allows it to stay in very nicely. Like, it's not complicated to get the head on by any means. It's a very smooth transition putting that in there, but it's actually, like you can see, it's pretty sturdy. There's no loose fitting or anything like that. Like, it's nice and tight and stays on there really well. You just have to actually work its way out and then put the head sculpt back on. Whichever one you would like to use stays in there perfectly. As far as a size goes on our Smilodon, again, it's big. For a length, I think the furthest point would probably be the back of this leg, potentially. It's tough to tell. But from the back of the leg right there to the snout, you're looking at about 10¼ inches or 26 centimeters. And then for a height to the back of the shoulders here, just shy of 5¼ inches or about 13, a little under 13½ centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line. in comparison to our Rebor Smilodon, and you can really see how huge they are now. I think in comparison to Mr. Paporex, I feel terrible for the Colovosaurus right there as he's about to have his head bitten off, but again, I think here in comparison to these figures, this should help to give you a good idea roughly of what I've been talking about this entire review, and that is the massive size of these models. Again, they are way bigger than I expected them to be, and you can definitely see that here with, again, Mr. Paporex, who's a pretty big figure himself. He would easily be taken out by one of these Smilodon. And then for another comparison, here is the now minuscule looking version from the Memory Museum line in comparison to the Rebor Smilodon, and wow, you can really see that Smilodon is in bad shape if he tries to go up against these Rebor versions. Again, the Memory Museum version previously probably would have been my top pick, that one or the Damn Toys one, which I unfortunately do not have, but these Rebor versions annihilate pretty much every Smilodon I can think of. And then for another comparison, here is the Recur version of the Smilodon in comparison to the Rebor version, which the Recur one definitely has some pretty decent size to it, but not even, again, remotely the same size as the Rebor version here. But the Safari LTD version here also shows again that he's really tiny in comparison to the Rebor version. Again, not even remotely a comparison between those ones. And then we've also got the newer Mojo Fun Smilodon here, again in comparison, showing off, there seems to be a pretty good trend here of showing off the fact that most Smilodon models are on the smaller side, and that's what I think really blew me away with the Rebor version, was how massive they are. Again, really giving the species justice when it comes to pretty much all of the praise it deserves with the Rebor version, and I think just showing off again how small so many of these other ones are and how huge the Rebor version is, that really just helps to, again, appreciate the animal more. And the final Smilodon we have here is the Collect Day version, again showing off the same similar aspect as pretty much every other one, where they have a smaller size, and these Rebor ones destroy them in overall beauty and also size by a mile. So hopefully these comparisons will not only help to show you a size if you have any of the previous Smilodon we've shown off, but also the fact that if you are choosing to purchase one of these newer Smilodon from Rebor, you are really going to upgrade your Smilodon in your collection. So these brand new Rebor Stray Cat Smilodon models are the best Rebor model I think I've ever seen, which is crazy because they've had so many incredible models, like some stuff that I honestly would sit there and look at and be like, there's no way they can top this. But as far as this Smilodon release goes, I feel like they've topped everything that they've released in the past. Who knows what will happen in the future, but as far as this moment in time, as far as the Rebor products that I have, I feel like these Smilodon are the best of the best when it comes to Rebor releases. And it almost hurts me to say that because I love so many of their models, like the Retrosaurs and stuff like that. Really tugs at my heartstrings when it comes to the retro type of a look of any dinosaur, but just the overall quality of these Smilodon are next level. Like, it's insane how much quality you get for the price you pay for these Smilodon, because the overall appearance and size of this is honestly something that I feel like you would have to pay a few $100 for to get like a big resin model of, and you still get that here with the Rebor version, and it's also still huge, similar to the size I would expect to get with a resin version, and also sports all of the incredible quality and then some on these models. The sculpts are insanely highly detailed. The fur detail is probably the best fur detail I've ever seen on a model, and they've shown off every ounce of minute detailing throughout the course of the model that they possibly could. Like, especially in the face, there's just so much going on when it comes to the facial expressions of the Smilodon. Like, everywhere you look, like the creasing and the scrunching of the skin, and like the eyebrows kind of pushed down, and like there's just so much showing off that fierce appearance to the Smilodon. They've just done an excellent job as far as that goes, and the realism again does not cease when it comes to just the sculpt. The paintwork is incredible, and you can see that especially in the mouths of the Smilodons. Again, the teeth are unbelievably lifelike. The inside of the mouth in general is just as alive as it gets. So much beautiful paintwork, beautiful detailing, and that fantastic gloss coat tying everything together, making it look, again, insanely realistic. and the paintwork is fantastic throughout the course of the entire Smilodon. They've done a great job of using many different tones of color, as well as utilizing some very nice dry brushing through every area pretty much of the Smilodon to give the paintwork the absolute most lifelike appearance possible. And again, the entire thing, like, there's not one thing on here that I can look at and be like, oh, that's probably the best aspect, but the paint's lacking or something like that. No, I feel like this is the best sculpt that I've seen from Rebor, the best paint job that I've seen from Rebor, and probably the most impressive size of a model, because it really shocked me pulling this out of the packaging and seeing just how large these Smilodon are. This is easily one of the top releases of 2021. Unfortunately, I didn't get a hold of it until 2022, but this is one of the figures that I was really waiting on to see just how incredible it would be, and it was so worth the wait. This is unbelievable, and the fact that you have the extra heads to kind of switch them out just makes it even cooler somehow than they already are. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where you can head on over right now to everythingdinosaur.com and purchase yourself these Smilodon. Trust me, if you are a fan of prehistoric mammals, or Smilodon specifically, you don't just want these in your collection, you absolutely need these in your collection. Make sure you check the link in the description, head on over to Everything Dinosaur right now, and place an order for either one or both of these Smilodon. And make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.